Hi, everybody. It's Katie back with another episode of my vlog, and it's Sunday, so that means it's time for the Cinema Club Sunday Roundup. This one's going to be a little bit of a shorter one. We actually didn't watch that many movies this week. We started the week off with I guess you call it a miniseries, or maybe it's a TV show, Netflix show. The show Kingdom, the South Korean feudal period drama piece that also has zombies in it. A season of Kingdom is 6 episodes long, and they're each, I think, a little bit shorter than 1 hour. So I think of it more like a mini series than a proper TV series. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when TV series had like 26 episodes in them. What? That's forever ago. Anyhow, if you guys haven't checked this out, the second season just was released to Netflix, I think, last week. We watched the first season back when it first came out, I think, over a year ago, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And then as soon as we saw that the second season was out, we immediately jumped on watching it. So that was kind of our cinema club watching for 3 nights in a row. This week, we watched 2 episodes each night, 3 nights in a row. So if you're not familiar with the show, it is like I said, it's a Korean show. It takes place during the feudal period about 400 years ago. And it's, at its heart, it's sort of a typical period drama with political intrigue. The king is sick, and is the prince, his adult son, going to inherit the throne, or is his current wife, who is pregnant, is she going to be able to have the baby before the king dies? And then will the baby become the new king, right? But meanwhile, the big exciting thing that's going on, besides just an awesome period drama with all the great costumes and technology and all the cool historical stuff that you want to see in a period drama, is there's also zombies. They're never called zombies in the show, but there is a plague sweeping across the land that causes dead people to get back up and start attacking live people. So we all know that's just a zombie. So the show is really fun. It's really well written. It's really well acted. It is dubbed, so you don't have to worry about reading subtitles if that's something that bugs you. But as I've encouraged you guys in the past, don't be afraid of subtitles if something is subtitled. Yeah, the special effects are great. The choreography and fight sequences are great. The cinematography in general is great. I really cared about a lot of the characters in this show. It's a really fun narrative, and having all of these zombies also makes it that much more exciting, and turns it into kind of a little bit of a splatter fest at times, which is pretty great. But I will admit, after watching 6 hours of this show over the course of 3 days, and given the current state of everything with this global virus pandemic, after we got done with Kingdom Season 2, I said to the guys, okay, you know what? Let's take a break from zombies, post-apocalyptic dystopian futures, or any kind of plague or contagion spreading around sorts of movies. Let's just take a little break from that. So actually the next night after we watched concluded Kingdom, we wound up watching Rocky. My kids had never seen it, and they had heard of it, and they were interested in it. And I explained, it's interesting because it's a drama and it's a sports movie. And like I said, I think last week, we don't tend to watch a lot of sports movies. We're not big sports fans, so we don't gravitate towards sports movies. But obviously Rocky is one of the most famous and best sports movies of all time. So we screened it. They loved it, of course. It's a great movie. It's funny because Sean, when we were watching it, in the opening credit sequence, it says that it's written by Sylvester Stallone. And he goes, what? And I was like, you didn't know that? And he goes, no. And I said, yeah, he helped write, I think all of them, or 7 out of 8 of them. And I think he also co-wrote all of the Rambo movies, which is a little known thing. Apparently a lot of people don't know that. But yeah, Rocky. So it's another one of these ultimate underdog stories. Here's the guy who gets the 1 in a million chance to go up against the champion, Apollo Creed, played by Carl Weathers masterfully. He's got to train up, and he's got to get himself in shape to go do that. But meanwhile, he's got this budding romance with his very, very shy girlfriend, Adrian. He is so painfully awkward in the romantic scenes. I mean, it's just, he's very awkward, but it works for the character. It's a fantastic film. If you've never seen it, I encourage you to see it. Of course, I think we've all seen the famous training montage sequence with the incredible Rocky theme song laid over the top of it. Even if you've never seen the movie, you've probably seen that. But I encourage you, go check this one out. If you've never checked it out, it's a great story. It's very heartwarming. Burgess Meredith plays his trainer, Mickey, in the movie. He's fantastic. It's a great film. So then the next night after we watched Rocky, I told them, well, what do you follow Rocky up with? And they all answered, well, Rocky 2. And I said, that's what you would think. But actually, I think we should watch First Blood instead. And they said, First Blood, what's that? And I said, it's the first Rambo movie. And they go, oh. So we wound up watching First Blood. And then we actually followed that up the second night with First Blood Part 2. So we watched those two kind of not as a double bill, but kind of back to back to compare them. And I think this is where it gets interesting because a lot of people kind of like Rambo, the character, is sort of cemented in our minds in popular culture as being a certain way. And if you watch the Rambo movies, the popular idea of who the character is obviously comes from the second movie. It's not actually from the first movie. And that's the character. The character himself doesn't change, but the positions he finds himself in become more and more extreme as the franchise goes on. And honestly, in my opinion, it's not really worth watching the ones past number 2. But First Blood is a really interesting movie because first of all, it kicked off the entire franchise. But as a movie, it stands on its own really, really well. If you don't know the story, it's about Vietnam vet, ex-Green Beret, John Rambo, who is traveling through the Pacific Northwest. So it's great for us as locals. He's in a small town in like southern Washington, and he's just passing through, and he just wants to get something to eat. And Brian Dennehy, who plays the local sheriff, doesn't want him in town and basically drives him out of town and tells him, like, we don't want you, get out of here. And John Rambo is like, come on, this is ridiculous. I just want to get something to eat. So he tries to go walking back into town, gets arrested by the sheriff, then gets horrendously mistreated at the sheriff's station. And then basically his response to that is to break out of the sheriff's station. That's an incredible scene all by itself. And then run off into the woods and go rogue. And basically these sheriff's deputies are chasing him through the woods, but he's a Green Beret from Vietnam. So he can, he's making all of these traps and improvised weapons, and he's making a camouflage outfit for himself and all of this stuff. And so the kids, of course, loved that. They've been missing going to their outdoor school program, Trackers. And they were like, this is like the ultimate Trackers movie. Wow, right? So it's really cool. And then in the very end of the movie, sorry, spoiler alert, but I'm just going to tell you, Rambo is he finds himself in a position where he can kill the sheriff who's caused him all this trouble. And his ex-commanding officer from when he was a Green Beret shows up and basically talks him down and convinces him not to kill the sheriff so that he doesn't have to, face the consequences of that. And the final scene in the movie is like a 5-minute long scene of Sylvester Stallone having this incredibly emotional breakdown, crying, sobbing, talking about what it was like in Vietnam and the trauma that he experienced there. And it is just such a honest, intimate, emotional portrait of what those guys must have felt like coming back from that war. And I've watched a lot of Vietnam movies. I'm interested in the topic. This stands out as one that really gets to it right at the end of the movie. And it's very surprising because, of course, Rambo is like a big, tough action movie, just explosions and murders and whatever is sort of like what the franchise feels like. But this ending scene on the first movie is just so emotional and very well done. You almost can't understand what Stallone is saying, unfortunately, because he's kind of blubbering so much, but it's very, very heart-wrenching and very heartfelt. So I think it would come as quite a surprise if you've never actually watched First Blood, which I highly recommend for the whole movie, but the ending is very interesting. Apparently, initially, critics hated it when it came out, but then audiences actually really liked it and then warmed up to it. And that's what caused the financial success, which then allowed them to keep going with the franchise. So then, like I said, we followed up First Blood with Rambo First Blood Part 2, which the title of that movie always cracked me up as a kid. I mean, like First Blood Part 2, just call it Second Blood, but that doesn't work with the way the title works. So in the second movie, the beginning of the movie, we see John Rambo is in like a prison camp, and he gets taken out of the camp to go do a special mission to go back to Vietnam and find some prisoners of war who are still stuck in a POW camp there. And there's some other political stuff that goes on that I won't say, because if you do want to watch the movie, there's some little twisty bits. But so this is the one where he's like actually backed by the government, and instead of using improvised weapons, he's got a bunch of cool gear that he brings with him into his mission. So it's sort of like the first movie, like, you know, times some factor. I was going to say times 10, but I don't think it's times 10. It's kind of interesting if you even just compare the two posters of the movies. They basically read the same way, but it's like the first one is like this sort of more gentle. It's painted. He's more in regular clothes. The weapon he's holding isn't quite so big. His facial expression isn't quite as extreme. And then the second movie poster, it's the same kind of shot of the same guy also holding a gun, but it's just so completely differently done. It has a very different vibe to it. And the movies have very different vibes to them. The second one is worse than the first one. But, you know, still worth a watch if you want to watch a shoot 'em up, big explosions, let's get those bad guys action movie from the mid 80s. And it, of course, set the scene for a bunch of other movies which followed it. So, you know, I think it's an important one if you're interested in the history of film and all of that. If you're not an action person, if you know, can't stand any of those movies from the mid 80s, forget about it. You definitely don't want to watch this one. But it's a great one if that's a genre that you're looking to check out. Maybe to take your mind off some of all this other crazy stuff that's going on right now. So that was it for this week. Actually, last night we started watching Bubblegum Crisis, but we only watched the first 2 episodes of it. So I'm going to hold that one till next week to review the whole thing. But if you want to watch along with us, we did find it on YouTube. So Bubblegum Crisis is going to be top of my reviews for next week. Meanwhile, I would love to hear what you guys have been watching, especially since I know people are watching extra movies during this coronavirus quarantine or lockdown or whatever you want to call it. I do hope everyone is staying at home and doing their part to help, what are they calling it, flatten the curve on this pandemic situation. But yeah, drop me a comment below and let me know what you guys have been watching this week. I will put the Cinema Club watch list link down below also, so you guys can see our list of 100 movies recommended by Sean and I, and the kids contributed a little bit, but it's kind of our sort of crucial 100 to watch, not presented in any particular order. I think that's it for now. I am going to go outside and enjoy some of the sunshine that's in my yard right now before it starts raining for a whole week. Oof. But maybe we'll watch extra movies this week. Lockdown plus rain plus Cinema Club. There'll probably be extra movies this week. All right. I will see you guys in a few days for another episode of my vlog. Until then, have a great day. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you later.